Hey everybody, and welcome to a new video. Are you either getting into photography and starting to learn some hard lessons, or want the fast track to experience without all the mistakes we all seem to make when starting out in a new hobby or venture? In this video, I'll share the top tips that 15 years of photography and 2 million photos has taught me, so you can avoid the pitfalls and jumpstart your photography, either for business or for pleasure. If you stay for my bonus tip, I'll show you how to navigate social media without being a slave to it. My name is Simon D'Entremont and I'm a professional nature and wildlife photographer living in Eastern Canada. I make weekly videos giving you photo tips or taking you behind the scenes for nature photography. Subscribe if you want to see more. Well, I may as well start off with a controversial one. Light matters. That is, having the right or good or pretty light can make some photos that lack of it will prohibit. Now, does this mean I'm such a light snob that I'll never go out in the midday or in the absence of a beautiful sunset? I'll stay in bed? No. Now, why did I say this would be controversial? Well, some folks will say that light doesn't matter and it just proves you're not a good photographer if you can't shoot in bad light. Well, it's true you can take great photos in bad light. This leopard I recently shot in Zambia at ISO 12,800 in the last minutes of the day looks okay to me. But in good light, it's much easier, like this photo of mine on the same trip in the beautiful evening sunset, or these shots of mine. Great light opens up all kinds of possibilities for great photos, in every direction, whereas poor light leaves you only a few. What does this mean for you? Get out of bed early. I'm meeting people walking into the wilderness with a camera at 10 a.m. when I'm walking out. Get some amazing light and use that as a foundation for amazing photos. The number one tip I give to people when they ask me to look at their photos and give me some feedback is shoot in better light. My next tip is that some people confuse lack of failure for success. I see some people doing photography as if their goal is to not make a mistake, using ISO 100 all the time, using a flash all the time, thinking that shooting in bursts is bad technique. Playing it safe may keep you from making mistakes, but it also keeps you from climbing. These photos of mine were less than 1% likely to succeed, but if I tried 1,000,000 times, that's 10,000 photo successes. No one cares how many times you failed. Take the risk to try something new, hike to a new location, use a new technique, and be okay if it fails. If you've never taken a blurry photo, that's not a sign of mastery. It's a sign you're staying in your comfort zone and playing it safe. Remember, perfection is a lousy goal in photography. Perfect photos don't tell stories. Honest ones do. I was watching a clip from the TV series Ted Lasso when I heard the main character say,
quote by Walt Whitman, it was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental."
I thought to myself, that applies to both photographers and photography. I see so many photographers on the internet judging the work of others. That's too this or too that, or that's a crappy photo, or what if they were curious? Why did you try that technique? Did you consider trying this one instead? Would you like some helpful advice? How many times have you walked into a scene and thought to yourself, this isn't a perfect scenario, it's boring, there's nothing worth shooting here? That's judgment talking, and judgment kills creativity. The best photographers don't see boring, they use their curiosity to see possibilities. What if I move lower? What if I wait for the light to change? What if I'm able to make magic from this average situation? The next time you think there's nothing to shoot here, be curious, not judgmental. My next piece of advice is buy nice or buy twice. I've bought tons of gear over the years and I've come to the conclusion that it's best to have less gear of higher quality than more gear of lesser quality. Tripods are a great example. You try to save a few bucks, so you buy a cheap tripod. You soon realize it does a crappy job of stabilizing your camera. Then when it wears out quickly too, because it's not a very expensive one, you have to replace it. So you eventually need a new one that costs twice as much. The rub, it will last 3 times as long, not the twice, which was the price difference, and it will do a better job than your old one too the whole time you own it. The moral of this story, you should have bought the good one in the first place. It would have been cheaper in the long run over the life cycle cost, and you'd have a better product the whole time. So when it comes to photography gear, consider the life cycle cost of the gear. How much will it cost you in the end? And try to do with less gear, but of better quality. Rather than 6 mediocre lenses, get 2 amazing ones. Now you may be saying, yes, but what if you don't have the money to buy better gear? My advice is to wait and save up a bit longer and get the better quality one, rather than rush out to get the cheaper alternative the moment it's within reach. Another good strategy is to buy premium used gear for the same price as a new average quality version. I'm in the market for a new video fluid head for when I do wildlife video work. Let's say I want to spend $750 US. I can buy a new Manfrotto 608 for that price, or I can buy the Sachtler Active 6 head that's $2,000 new and way more head. I can buy it used for the same $750. These Sachtlers are the cat's meow in the industry, by the way. Now it's used, but because it's a premium product, it's likely to last a long time, longer than the Manfrotto I expect, and I get a better product the whole time. I bought my very first wildlife camera used, and there's nothing wrong with doing the same. And while we're talking about buying used gear, it's a great time to bring in the sponsor of this week's video, MPB. MPB is the world's largest global platform to buy, sell, and trade photo and video gear. But they're not a marketplace. They buy gear from photographers and inspect them before reselling them. They even offer a 6-month guarantee, and the photos on their websites are the real photos of the actual gear. Here's that Sachtler video head I was talking about. It's in excellent condition and includes the panning bar and the side load plate. I could even get a no-hassle full refund within 14 days if it's not as described. So get your equipment dollar to go further with great gear from MPB. If you've got gear that you're not using, send it in for a trade and it will cut your cost down even more. Give MPB a try at the link in the description below and get that premium gear that you've lusted over more quickly than you ever planned. The next thing that is important to put under your belt is the following learning. Settings are a means to good photography, not a goal. You should learn about equipment and settings so you don't need to worry about it in the field. Some people act like mastering gear and mastering settings is mastering photography. Great technical skills with the camera don't give great photos. Those come from capturing great emotion, amazing scenes, great compositions, or compelling stories. The trick is to know your gear well enough to not think about it when you're out taking photos. Now I know that this takes time to get that proficiency, but that's okay. That's why learning some semi-automatic modes like aperture and shutter priority and auto ISO are good practices. They allow you to use your brain power for creative purposes when in the field, not settings. My next tip is that post-processing isn't needed, but it does make you more versatile. Now I take lots of photos that look great without hardly any processing, like these. But lighting isn't always perfect and conditions aren't always favorable for straight from the camera results. The ability to process your photos after taking them isn't new to digital photography. Classic film photographers like Ansel Adams did the same thing in the darkroom. It's just part of photography. Now, I'm not going to lecture you on the ethics of digital photography processing. To process and how much you should feel comfortable processing before you start drifting into digital art and so on is your consideration and your decision. But processing does allow you to have a look, and it allows you to take photos shot in substandard conditions and rescue them. And it allows you to provide photos to clients, if you sell your work, more in line with commercial expectations. And you don't need to be a pro at processing to make a difference. Sometimes all it takes is a few tweaks to get that photo looking just the way you want. Maybe it's to hang on the wall or just make it prettier for social media. That's your call. My next lesson I've learned is that we should take photos about things, not of things. A photo of something is just a record. Here's a bird, here's a tree, here's a street. But a photo about something tells a story. It shows mood or emotion or a bigger idea. Instead of just photographing a coffee cup, show the quiet morning light, the steam rising, or maybe a hand reaching out for it. Now your photo isn't about the cup. It's about peace, warmth, or routine, or some story about what role the coffee cup is playing in your life. If you focus on that, your photos will go from snapshots to storytelling. My trick I use is to ask myself, this is a photo of a subject, and what else can you put in the photo to put some context or idea to go along with the subject? My next step is pretty straightforward. Spend time in the field. As I like to say to wildlife photographers, the odds of seeing a bald eagle in your living room is actually quite low. Great photos rarely happen by accident. The best shots come when you're out there and you can combine lots of winning conditions together. Great action or subjects, great light, and a lucky timing. Like this photo of mine of a wave splashing a duck, or this owl taking off exactly at sunset, or this Milky Way sitting directly over this hiking trail. Flukes? None of them. They happen through planning or waiting for that perfect moment. And the number of these perfect moments will go up proportionately to your time in the field. Someone who goes out 4 times a week will get them to happen 4 times as often as someone who goes out once. And finally, when it comes to social media, which is still very important in photography, don't shoot for likes. This will wear you down and be a cup that has no bottom. There will always be someone with more likes than you, and having your spirit and mood for the day flip-flopped by how many likes you got on your last photo is a recipe for disaster. Shoot for your passion to get great photos and earn likes with great quality. Let the passion that you have show in your photos and the tenaciousness you had in taking them come through too. Also engage with your audience. Tell them how you took the shot, why you took the shot, and what story the photo is telling. And if you get negative people coming to your social media, kill them with kindness. Take the high road. They'll think they were run over by a train, and if you want to do this professionally, prospective businesses or clients will say to themselves, this is someone I can do business with. If you want to learn more about photo processing that I mentioned earlier, I have a video about rescuing dull and lifeless wildlife photos. And to learn more about my new wildlife photo processing course I just launched, have a look right here. I hope these tips can shorten the learning curve for you in your photography journey, and that you can use these tips to take your own unique and amazing photos. I know you can do it.